Avengers. God, I'm excited. So yes, guys, as you know, I am revisiting the Marvel films, the early Marvel films so far, and I've been really excited to talk about the Avengers. Why? Because it's my favorite Marvel movie, and it's my favorite movie of all time. Next to Star Wars A New Hope. I don't know which one it is between those two, but Avengers is really close to Star Wars Episode 4. I love the Avengers so much. I even have it on Blu-ray. So the reason why the Avengers is my favorite film of all time is because it's that one film that I waited a long time for. When I was a kid, I wanted the Avengers to be a movie, and when I heard that they were finally going into production, it was in 2008 when I heard about that. Because of the after-credit scenes of Iron Man and the Incredible Hulk, that's when I realized that they were finally making an Avengers movie. However, I had to wait 4 years for that movie. That was the hardest thing I had to do in my life, was wait for the Avengers. And when it finally came out, I nerdgasmed. I nerdgasmed so hard. So what is the Avengers about? The Avengers is about bringing all these different characters that we've been introduced to since 2008 and bringing them into one giant movie. In this movie, Loki has come to Earth. Loki wants to take over Earth. But little does Loki know, Nick Fury of S.H.I.E.L.D. has already compiled a list of people that he wants to be on his Avengers team. Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, the Incredible Hulk, Black Widow, maybe Hawkeye. If Hawkeye was even relevant in this film, I don't know. And he brings these people together in order to stop this god. And that's it. That's the simple plot of this movie. And as simple as it is, it's such a great movie. It really is. By the way, guys, I try to be as professional as I can be with these reviews, but I'm probably going to be talking as a fan throughout, so I just want to warn you guys, I love this movie. I can't stop talking about it like this. So what made this movie for me? Just like a whole bunch of different things. Just seeing these characters throughout 4 years and them finally coming together in this big team type movie. And just waiting for this got me so excited to be finally sitting in the movie theater in 2012. And surprisingly, I like the first scene of this film, even though it doesn't have the Avengers at all. It has S.H.I.E.L.D. We've got Nick Fury, we've got Agent Coulson. We're even introduced Maria Hill, who was a character in the comics that I hadn't seen before in the movies. And at that moment, the first minutes of the film, I was giddy because I was like, oh my god, it's Maria Hill. So knowing that it was little things like that that were drawing me into the film, even though we weren't seeing the team in the first scene, I knew at the beginning of it I was just gonna be giddy throughout the whole movie. And just seeing everybody interacting with each other was just so perfect, and it was just so fulfilling for the Avengers finally coming together in this movie. And what's better than the Avengers? The villain, Loki. Watching this film, it's really hard to say who the main protagonist is. You could say that it's Nick Fury, but at the same time, that's kind of weird because he's barely in the film, but he does bring the team together and he wants them to progress throughout the film. You could also say that it's just the team in general because you want them to progress and you want them to work together, but they start off kind of bad, they don't really work well together, and then they progress and they later on become a team. So you could say that the team itself is the protagonist of this film. But even saying that is kind of weird because a team isn't a main person, it's not a main protagonist. So it's definitely really weird pinpointing who the main character is in this film because everyone has a sufficient amount of screen time. And sometimes when I'm watching this, I'd have to say that the main character might be Loki and how he's affecting each individual team member. Each character has their own personal scene with Loki, whether it be through dialogue or an action sequence. First one being Captain America, which is my favorite because it's an action sequence and it's such a heroic scene. That scene where that German guy stands up to Loki and Loki's about to kill him, but Captain America comes out of nowhere and saves him. That gave me goosebumps. Like I mentioned in my Iron Man scene that there was that scene where Iron Man saved that kid and his father. It was the same amount of goosebumps that I got and it was equivalent to that scene. But besides that, you can see while watching this film again that each character has their own personal screen time with Loki. Except for Bruce Banner because he turns into the Hulk because of Loki, so that's kind of justified, and except for Hawkeye. And that's the negative thing I'm going to say about this film, is Hawkeye. Oh my god, what did they do? I was very excited for Jeremy Renner to be in this film because of the Hurt Locker, and knowing earlier that he was casted as Hawkeye was really cool. However, a majority of the movie, he is mind-controlled by Loki. And I get it, Joss Whedon was trying to pay tribute to the comics because Hawkeye started out as a villain, and he wanted to incorporate Hawkeye as a villain in the first half of the film, but it doesn't work because he's already established as a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. Because of this, Jeremy Renner almost didn't come back in Avengers 2 because he felt like this character should have had more screen time. But besides Hawkeye, each character has their own legitimate amount of screen time, and it's amazingly balanced. Let's talk about Mark Ruffalo real quick, who is Bruce Banner in this film. Like I said in my review to The Incredible Hulk, I really would have liked to see Edward Norton as Bruce Banner in the Avengers film. However, Mark Ruffalo is so redeeming as Bruce Banner, where we see this Bruce Banner who has some control over the Hulk, and he has experience. And he's gained some experience and knowledge as to how to tame this being inside him. He's still somewhat secluded, but he's also calm at the same time. He's learned how to control his anger. And that was so interesting to see, and later on when we see him turn into the Hulk by himself willingly was the most memorable part about this film. I also enjoyed that little scene with Iron Man where he has the monologue with Loki saying that no matter what he does, the Avengers are going to stop him. They're going to avenge the Earth. I thought that was so cool and was kind of like my second favorite interaction scene between a hero and Loki. And speaking of Iron Man, there's kind of the internal battle between him and Captain America in this movie. I was always so confused as a kid because when they finally are in a scene with each other, it seems like they know each other really. Like it would have been interesting to see how they met and why they are the way they are to each other. It is kind of further explained in this film and later films that Tony Stark has daddy issues. Howard Stark spent a majority of his time talking about Captain America and working with S.H.I.E.L.D. and didn't spend much time with Tony. It would have been really interesting to see that interaction between him and Captain America and why they are the way they are to each other. But it's kind of established and you can already guess why they are the way they are to each other. Black Widow is also really good in this film. I felt in Iron Man 2 that she was more of a side character really. Just like a bland side character really, but that fight scene in Iron Man 2 totally saved her in that movie. Where in this film you understand her motive, she's working with S.H.I.E.L.D. and she's trying to find out where Hawkeye is and why he's been compromised, which brought a little bit of humanity to her and you understood where she was coming from. It was also good to see Thor again in this film, and it was interesting to see Thor not as a vain character, but almost as an experienced Thor. You can see that he's grown up. You can see that he's on Earth for a reason, and it's to bring Loki back to Asgard. And seeing all these different characters come together and interacting with each other is just so good. And the first majority of the movie, it's them not getting along. You can see on the helicarrier that they're arguing, and that's one of the most memorable parts about the film is you've been waiting so long for the Avengers to come together, but in a portion of the movie you wonder, is this such a good idea for these powerful beings to come together in this one helicarrier? And you start to question whether or not this was such a good idea in the first place. And let's talk about the saddest scene in this film, Phil Coulson dying. Coulson was a character that was presented to us through Iron Man, Iron Man 2, Thor, and he was just a little side character that we got used to. And seeing him leave in the Avengers, such a little side character, but we saw him a lot, was really effective, and I did not think that was going to affect me as much, but it was really well presented. Like my argument with Captain America the First Avenger, when Bucky died, I felt as though that should have been more emotional, and we should have spent a majority of time mourning over this character. But knowing that we mourned more for Phil Coulson in the Avengers film was so powerful, and this is Joss Whedon directing such a good and sympathetic scene. And because Phil Coulson died, this little character, he brings these people together as the Avengers finally. And then we finally have the Battle of New York, which establishes future Marvel films, and it is kick-ass. Just seeing these fight sequences with all these characters, even Hawkeye redeemed himself in this fight scene, was just so memorable, and I bought the Blu-ray so I can watch that scene over and over and over again. Iron Man being thrown out of the tower and the armor coming on him was just so freaking amazing. Captain America running on the streets of New York and saving those civilians. Black Widow and Hawkeye working together as agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Thor fighting Loki on the Stark Tower. And the best scene throughout this film, the Incredible Hulk throwing Loki around like a rag doll. That was amazing and genius. Thank you, Joss Whedon, for that memorable scene. And one of the main arguments about this film that people were talking about is they wish that they would have had a fight scene with all the Avengers and Loki. Instead, they're fighting this alien race, the Chitauri, in New York, and it doesn't seem like they are fighting Loki all at once. Like I said though, I feel as though each character had a majority of time with Loki, whether it be an action scene or a dialogue scene, and I just didn't care. I really didn't care whatsoever. The Avengers saved New York, and it would have been cool to see that, but I think they redeemed themselves with this Battle of New York in this movie. Guys, The Avengers is my favorite movie of all time. I freaking love this movie. I waited such a long time to see it. It's got a majority of my favorite characters, my favorite actors, and it's just a very memorable blockbuster. I was so proud when The Avengers became the third biggest box office movie of all time. I felt like a proud father. I think it stands as like number 5 now, but at the time when it came out, it was number 3. And it's just amazing to see how far we have gone in the Marvel franchise because of this movie. We started off with Iron Man, a character that wasn't really well known to movie audience. But after that movie and 4 years later, these characters, including Iron Man, have become pop culture icons. I was like at a Publix like 2 days ago, and I was buying some groceries and I saw like a guy buying popsicles, and I saw Captain America and Iron Man on popsicles. Knowing that we can see these characters as something as simple as popsicle sticks is freaking amazing to me. I love the Avengers, I love Marvel, and I love where this franchise has brought us to this day. So yes guys, that was my review of the Avengers, and that concludes my reviews of the Phase 1 movies of Marvel. I'm sorry I didn't reach the Phase 2 movies yet. I haven't had enough time because of school and everything and doing all these other reviews. I wish I could have reviewed all the movies because Doctor Strange is coming out tomorrow. I'm just not gonna have time, but I promise you I will reach those reviews next week, starting with Iron Man 3. Because God knows I'm going to need a full day to talk about that movie. Thank you guys so much. I am Corbin Stuckey, and this is Pixel Talk.